Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Thank you for joining us on the VIRL February webinar, where, as you may know, last Tuesday we had a very exciting announcement to bring VIRL in the cloud through Packet.net's bare metal cloud system. And today we're going to take a deeper dive on, what Packet is, how to get your system set up, some tips on it, and also mainly to let you ask any questions if you have tried out the system and have anything that you want to ask the team. We actually have Adam from the Packet team today to do the intro, and he can also answer questions regarding any Packet usage. So definitely utilize the Q&A section we have the bottom right of your webinar screen. So a couple of housekeeping items, like I mentioned earlier. Definitely send in your Q&A today. We have Adam from the Packet team and also other members of the VIRL team that will be on standby helping you answer questions. If we don't get to all of them, we'll have them answered, and also the whole Q&A will be transcribed and posted on our community afterwards. This whole session will also be recorded, and then we'll put it on YouTube. You guys will be sent an email with the material after the session is done. And also, last thing, at the end of the webinar, we'll have a feedback survey, and please fill that out. Let us know how we did and also what you want to hear from for the future VIRL webinars. And we do read through every comment, so anything's welcome. So quick rundown today. We will kick off with Adam, like I mentioned earlier, from the Packet team, to do a quick introduction on and deeper dive on what Packet is and what they provide. And then after that, we'll have Alejandro from the VIRL team to help give you some tips on how to set up your VIRL on Packet server. And as I mentioned earlier, you can send in your questions anytime during the session. Let us know what you need help with. Just before we get started, I just want to point out these are some of the places you can find more information about VIRL on Packet. The main webpage will be from our website, virl.cisco.com/cloud, and from there you can get access to all the different resources. Some of them including the promotion page that's on Packet's website. If you sign up through there, you can get $25 usage credit on Packet. And I'm sorry, these are supposed to be hyperlinked, but we have set up instructions for two different types of setups. One, if you already have VIRL installed locally on your machine, you can set up a Packet session from there. Or if you don't have one and you can just use your VIRL license key, and then we have a VIRL launcher app set up introduction as well. Both of them, we have these detailed instructions as well as a walkthrough video on YouTube. So check those out. And then, just another quick shout out before. Why would you want to use VIRL on Packet? Of course, because you can get more simulation power without, having to buy your own hardware resources. And Packet's hourly fees start as low as 5 cents an hour, so very competitive pricing. And also, the VIRL team, we're giving you a freebie of doubling your node limit. So if you have 20 nodes, you can get 40 node simulation power on Packet. And if you have 30 node license, you can get 60 nodes on Packet. So definitely big benefit to using, to deploying your VIRL server in the cloud. And now I'm going to hand over to Adam from Packet team to, introduce us more to Packet. So Adam, I'm going to hand you the ball over here.
Great, and thank you very much, Valerie, and greetings to everybody in attendance. My name is Adam Rothschild. I'm a member of the founding team at Packet, and I manage our network and data center infrastructure, and just wanted to spend a couple of brief moments bringing people up to speed on who Packet is. I mean, obviously, Cisco is somewhat of a household name, Packet less so. The company has been around for about a year and a half now. We were founded in the summer of 2014 by a bunch of industry veterans in the hosting space. I and Zach Smith, our CEO, came over. We were originally part of the founding team at OBSOLETE.net, which was sold to Internet So definitely this is a space that we know well and are very passionate about. And also, what really appeals to me as a network operator is just the seamlessness of the automation and the whole VIRL solution. I mean, in my career, I've had a number of challenges basically trying to stand up a network lab environment. I mean, this is something that's obviously very logistically complex and requires a lot of elbow grease, a lot of physical racking and stacking of equipment, and just a lot of labor and physical setup just to stand up a couple of interconnected routers, try out various software releases, various protocols and high availability features, and so on and so forth, and being able to, and I would add also towards that, I mean, what I'm describing is the high end, and on the low end, of course, you have the ability to run various simulators and virtualization platforms on a laptop or workstation. But what was long missing from the equation is just kind of middle of the road between the two extremes, and a way to have a virtual network in a very performant, always on, kind of persistent environment, and the kind of thing that you could share with your various colleagues and allow them to also log into routers and kick the tires around and test out configurations and so on and so forth. So we're really excited about the partnership that we formed with Cisco around VIRL. And aside from being a provider, this is really the type of tool that we at Packet or someone at another service provider or in an enterprise environment could also find benefit from. So we're really excited about everything that we're doing here. So just real quickly about Packet, basically, this is our tagline here. We offer the premise of the cloud, and it's delivered on bare metal. And what I mean by that is we're basically borrowing from a lot of the automation and agility of all the major public cloud providers, but we're offering it on a physical server. So we believe it's a much better value prop, it's much better price performance. You don't have to contend with the concern of noisy neighbors, people competing with you for access to CPU and other resources on your machine. You're not competing for access to network. You're not getting artificially constrained and basically having your network port capped by your provider. And we're going to go into the specs in a moment, but we're allowing people to spin up some very performant infrastructure at what we believe to be very competitive price points as well. So I'm not going to spend time going into all the details, but just the takeaway in this slide is that we're offering infrastructure extremely quickly and in a very predictable manner. I will say, just as I am an engineer, in interest of full disclosure, we advertise that on average, we're spinning up server infrastructure in under 7 minutes. That is an average between all of our hardware platforms and OS distributions. We have some extremely lightweight and extremely fast platforms, such as CoreOS as an example. And on the other hand, we also have some of the more intensive platforms like an Ubuntu or CentOS or VIRL running on top of Ubuntu. So as much as I'd like to say that you're going to be able to instantiate a VIRL instance on our platform in under 7 minutes, unfortunately, that would be dishonest if I made that claim, but we are doing a number of things around imaging to speed up that process, which I'm going to talk to as well. And along with that, we have what we call curated configurations. Basically, this is kind of a model that we're borrowing from the public cloud providers, but offering with bare metal server. And by that, what I mean is we don't offer a large menu with many dozens of permutations of network card, disk config, processor, and so on and so forth. What we've identified are basically what we call curated configurations, which are specific hardware types, which might not cater to every single client and their niche requirement, but we believe cater to a very large portion of our addressable client base. And by doing the curated configurations, what we're allowed to do is basically maintain copious inventory of these machines in the data center so that there's always some inventory available and you're not waiting for hardware to arrive or waiting for a data center technician to perform a hardware upgrade or downgrade. We're just providing very readily available infrastructure. And let me advance to the next slide. So something also somewhat unique about Packet and the space that we're in is we pride ourselves as being a very developer-friendly organization. We've integrated with a number of automation and orchestration platforms that are popular in the DevOps community. This slide and the logos associated are being updated literally daily, so there are more integrations that I haven't yet had our marketing department find logos for and add to the slides, but the big takeaway here is if there's any automation and infrastructure-centric platform out there in the community, chances are, and I'm not even lying when I say this, we've integrated with it or it's on our roadmap. So by all means, I encourage people to check these out. These are a lot of good platforms, many good partners, and likewise, if there's anything out there that you have any questions about, feel free to engage us as well, and we will see what we can do and let you know our status on the integration. And just to provide some more color, these are actually two additional links that I would share. Number one is Terraform. I just wanted to spend a couple of words on that for anyone that's used VIRL on the Packet platform, and if not, no worries, we're going to get into that. Terraform has been a really great partner for us. It's a very good platform for basically programmatically spinning up complex infrastructure with a manifest of various packaging and additional automation that needs to happen after we've loaded a base OS onto the server. So definitely recommend a look there. We've done an integration with them as a provider. So and you're going to see this in a little bit, but as part of a Terraform manifest, you can basically instantiate servers on the Packet platform using our API, and then from there install additional software packaging, apply additional network config and additional software config, and so on and so forth. So that's a great example of a partner that's basically taken the Packet platform and the Packet API and built very seamless integration on top of us. And by the same measure, I would also recommend a read through the documentation for the Packet API, which is pretty comprehensive and allows you to spin up and tear down basic server infrastructure, and in addition, manage your IP addressing, how IPs get routed, and so on and so forth. And we're adding a number of methods to that on a pretty regular basis. And not going to spend too much time on this one, but something also unique about the Packet model is we are very conducive to collaboration. Basically, what we've done is, as a new company in the space and starting from scratch with a brand new portal, we've basically foregone some of the conventional data models and assumptions that there is a single user login on our portal that encompasses an entire organization. What we've done is we have the concept of collaborators, which basically allows you to invite your entire technical team to your project with Packet very simply. We support the concept of a freelancer or a consultant, basically an individual who does work for multiple organizations or multiple business units, but wants to manage all of the infrastructure that they control under a single pane of glass with a single login and with the requisite security and partitioning. So kind of unique what we've done there. And this is, in a nutshell, our hardware configurations. You can see that we run, and this gets back into the point I made earlier about the curation. You can see that we've run the gamut, and on the very low end, we have a machine that's priced competitively with a virtual machine. This works out to about $35 a month for our smallest increment of capacity. And for basically virtual machine pricing, you have a fully functional physical server. Granted, it's with the Intel Atom CPU. It's a 4-core processor, so not as beefy as some of the higher ends, but still, we believe, a very performant and at the same time low-cost platform. Very good to get your feet wet, get to know the packet platform if you're doing development testing. Even in production use, it works great as a control node or a lightweight server. Then moving up the stack, we have the Type 1 server, which is kind of what we term a general purpose app server or web server. And this is kind of the sweet spot that we see for a base level VIRL server, just given the fact that it has a goodly amount of RAM. It has 32 gigs of RAM. It has 4 of the E3 physical cores, so you have a more performant processor. And going up the chain at the very high end, we have the Type 3, which works for very intensive database work or as a hypervisor in a very busy virtualization environment. If you have a very large network that you're looking to model, this could be a good candidate as well. You're getting 16 physical cores at 2.6 gigahertz. You have 128 gigs of RAM. And in addition to SSD, you have some NVMe flash, so extremely performant local disk. And then another unique feature about this is you have a 20 gig of bonded network. It's basically 2 by 10 gig with link aggregation, so you get very performant network as well. We have the storage server, which is going to enter a public beta later, and then also, though we haven't announced a formal schedule for it, worth mentioning is also for the virtualization crowd, we are looking to offer a server that we term the Type 4, which will basically give you access to more RAM and potentially more CPU cores, and likely to remove the NVMe flash, because the assumption is you'll have some local storage to boot a hypervisor, and then any additional storage is block storage iSCSI, but again, that's more speculative at this point, so I don't want to provide any firmer details at this time. And also, unique about us is for all of these platforms, where we've just launched a beta for our iSCSI block storage platform. And it's one of our few but vital multi-tenant offerings. And in addition, we support something which we call elastic IP addressing, which is very similar to some of the public cloud providers with similar features. And this just gives you a block of IP addressing that you can manage and you can route between servers. So if you have like some public facing virtual IP, if you're doing load balancing, or just really any public facing service with an IP address that you want to move between servers for scaling or for DR, it's a very neat and compelling feature for that. And just real quickly, where we are, we're deployed right now in the New York Metro. We have a single data center online right now. We connect to a number of network POPs in very popular meet me areas. We have a diverse peering infrastructure with settlement-free peering to a lot of other CDNs and hosting providers and ecosystem partners, and also connect to a lot of broadband ISPs as well. And within the next 30 to 60 days, we're opening in 2 additional locations. We're going to be in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we're going to be in Amsterdam as well. And just real quickly, wanted to speak a little bit more to the roadmap we discussed. So we do have the Type 2 server, which is a storage-rich machine that's going to be betaing shortly. Q3 of 2016, it's going to enter into general availability, and then going into 2017, we're looking to deploy in Asia as well, in location to be determined. But takeaway here is we are looking to build a global infrastructure. We're very cognizant of the fact that a lot of our clients are themselves global companies and located around the globe, and we're looking to deploy an infrastructure that will cater to them in a number of markets. And I realize we're pressed for time because the Cisco folks have a lot of very cool stuff to show us. So just very quickly, kind of wanted to walk through what our network and data center looks like. As I alluded to before, we are entirely layer 3 down to the host. We believe that this gives people better flexibility in terms of IP address portability and the ability to move IP addressing between servers in the data center or over to additional data centers as we turn them up. And as operators, we believe this model is also conducive to just better scaling, better concurrent maintainability, and better uptime. We are religiously opposed to layer 2, you could say. We've deployed layer 2 networks in past lives, and we just find that basically modeling our data center like the backbone network and like the public internet is much more forward-looking and much more scalable, and not having to scale such features as VLANs and MAC learning and the dreaded spanning tree protocol, and basically instead just scaling basic IP routing in BGP just allows us to be a much more robust service provider. So this is something somewhat unique to us and something that we're very proud of. And lastly, I promised a little bit of eye candy because I'm a hardware geek myself. I know there are a number of engineers in this call, so just wanted to kind of show people what some of the hardware platforms that we're deploying look like. We're very entrenched in blade architecture and a lot of high-density compute and kind of, you could say, OCP-esque like designs. And what I say by that are hardware platforms that basically take some of the elements of the open compute project, such as high availability and shared backplane around power, and in addition, the concept of the MES card, and basically warp it into conventional racks that we're deploying in commercially available co-location environments. So again, this is very dense. Our typical rack is about 10 kilowatts, and at the high end, some of our racks go up to 20 kilowatts of loading in a single rack. This is our Type 0. It's basically 112 of these Atom servers in a 6U form factor. This is an installation of the Type 1 server, a little bit less dense, though still pretty dense. We have multiple hundreds of disparate servers in a single cabinet. And last but certainly not least, this is an installation of one of our Type 3 platforms. And again, you can see it's a fat twin kind of form factor. So you have basically 2 freestanding server nodes per 1U of space. So again, obviously it's more beefy, so less dense, but we strive for making an environment as dense as we can. And that's basically it for me. I believe there's going to be an opportunity to ask some questions later, but in addition, any questions, everybody is welcome to send me an email. This is our help desk address as well for any help spinning up our infrastructure, as well as if people are of the Twitter persuasion, I encourage you to reach out to us there as well. And thank you very much for the time.
Thank you so much, Adam. We're very excited for this collaboration, and thank you for taking your time to come on today and talk to our users.
Likewise here. We're really excited on our end.
Yep. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, while Adam's online, you can ask any questions on the Q&A section. And now we'll hand it over to Alejandro, which a lot of you have been excited for, to look more into how to set up your VIRL server on Packet. So Ali, take away.
Thanks, Valerie. All right. Let me grab the ball here. Actually, if you could pass the ball to the other Alejandro, that way I can share my screen.
Got it.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So what we're going to run through is basically just a quick. I'm not going to go through the complete like full-on install because I know some of you have already gone through and done the installation and found that the deployment can be somewhat lengthy. So I already have one deployed, but we're going to talk about just the overall process of it, some of the little hangups that we ran into, or some of our users have already ran into, and we can cover that a little bit more. And also just a quick rundown really of the command and how to get everything all set up and what some of this stuff means. So I created, so from our announcement thread, you have a link to a README file. The README file is very concise. So it has all the steps and some explanations. And if you're into developer, then you might understand a little bit more. I'm not so much of a developer, so I made the instructions a little bit simpler. There is one command that we found that you may or may not need, but running it definitely is not a bad thing. So, which is this command right here is for this package is PW or password generator. But here are our commands. The first command that we'll talk about really is our vinstall salt, which is just we're taking our config that we already have in UWM and we're passing it to all our components, get everything all set up. Next, we would run this PW generator just to install it. If it's already installed, then you would get a message that it's already installed, it's not needed, so you can skip it. This piece right here, this is now when we begin to actually get all the packages that we need on our local server. Now, what I'm going to show today is starting from a deployment that you already have. So I already have a VIRL server running locally in my LAN, in this particular case in my home. So we installed these packages. Once the packages are installed, then we'll need to move over to this directory. Now, again, there's a run through in our YouTube channel, which we do have links on. We do have links on our site, as well as once our webinar is complete, you'll have all these links as well. So, sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought here. All right, so anyways, so we would run this. This command is very quick. Once this completes, and with no errors, which it should, if you run into errors, obviously post in the community, but so far we have not seen any issues with that at all. The next thing is that this part is important, that we do need to change directory to the newly created directory VIRL_packet. So here I am on my server, and I already ran my Terraform command. So I'm going to move over to VIRL packet. If we list here, we have some of the files that get called out in the instructions, passwords and settings. Okay. Once you have actually, I'm sorry, I probably should have backed up. Before you even get this far, you should have already created an account in Packet. Once you have your account created in Packet with our $25 credit, then you can go right here and you'll create your API key. So don't get too excited because I can delete and create this and delete this API key so you don't get a free server. So once you have your API key created, now you're ready to really start configuring the Terraform files that we have on your local server. One thing to note that if you get excited and you get to log into your Packet account and you go to manage and you decide to create a new project, if you leave that project there, regardless of what you name it, it most likely will fail when you try to deploy your VIRL server. So you want to delete it. Another thing that we've noticed is that sometimes our SSH keys get hung or just during the process that they don't match up. So if you see one in here when you do not have a VIRL server deployed, you do want to go ahead and just delete it. It will get created. The only thing that you need to do in your packet account is just to create an API key. You'll take that API key and double click it to highlight it and copy, or click the button. And we'll need that to set up our settings.tf file. So if we go back to our installation here, so this is where we're at now. So we already have our packet account. I've already created my API key, and now we're going to go to our settings.tf file. It is Linux. It is CLI. This will change in the future, but for now, I know this is a pain point for some people, but it really is not too difficult. We will use an editor called Nano, which I think for most people is a little more user-friendly. So we'll just type sudo nano settings.tf. Again, make sure that you are in the newly created VIRL_packet directory. Okay, and now you'll use the cursor keys on your keyboard to move around and go to this line right here. If this was a brand new file, it would say bad key, and we would replace the text that says bad key with your API key. So you remove your cursor at any point. I usually like to go to the end, backspace, all the way through to delete it, right? And then I just right-click because I'm in PuTTY to paste it. And we got a couple of extra guys, so we'll take those out. Take that out and take that out. Whoops. All right. And done. So then you will say Control O. Then if you look at here towards the bottom, you'll see it says write out. So you use your keyboard for Control O, and you get this prompt. I'm actually going to cancel that just to make sure that I don't mess up what I have. And then Control X to exit. Okay, and I'm going to say no. All right, so now we have our settings in place. The next part is we want to make sure that what we have in place is ready for the deployment, which is this next command, Terraform plan. Now, so now we're going to tell Terraform to check my plan and do that from this directory, which what that dot is implying. And hit enter. It goes through. I do have a server already running, so this actually is probably going to fail. Yep. Okay. So that's all done. Once this completes, the response will be slightly different, but still you should have no errors. If you see any errors, then please start a post and just copy that text. The next thing is now we're going to tell Terraform to apply my plan here, and you would hit enter, and that would go through and actually apply and deploy your server. The first piece of the deployment is actually taking creating your bare metal instance. Once that bare metal instance is done, the next piece is that we come in and actually deploy the VIRL server. That piece does take some time, and that is something that we are working with Packet to reduce the overall time to deploy our VIRL server. Once it's all complete, you'll end up with this output at the bottom. Okay, here you have your password. Note that it is no longer the default, guest, and UWM admin and password. Okay, these are all unique passwords. They are located in your in the local directory, but I do have that in this post. More information down. Excuse me. More information down here for you as far as like where to get if you happen to not remember what the password is. Where are they? Can I change it? And you can do that from right here. Okay. So now we have our server deployed, and we can verify that by going to our packet, manage, and here's our server. He's active. But now we want to manage him. Okay. So we do need an OVPN client. We use OpenVPN. I already have the OpenVPN client installed on my Windows box. You can use TunnelBlick, which is the GUI version for a Mac if you're on a Mac for OpenVPN. So how do I do that? Since we're still in the same directory, we can just do cat client OVPN. Okay, and we get a bunch of text. So what I like to do is scroll back up to where my installation finished, and then take all of this right from right here, all the way down to the bottom. Right here to this key. I like to use Notepad++. You can choose to use something else, but it is important to use a text editor, not a word editor like Word, like Microsoft Word or WordPad or something similar. I'm going to highlight all that. It's all junk, and paste it in there. All right, and now we'll save it. So I've saved this file to my desktop. Now the cool thing about OpenVPN on Windows is that once you have your file, well, once you have it installed, then it's just a matter of going to your configuration file, right-clicking on it, and say start OpenVPN using this config file. So we'll go ahead and start that. It opens up their version of the GUI, which is just this command prompt. If you close this window, it will close your VPN session. What we're waiting for is this line right here. So it looks like we are good to go. So we'll minimize this. Oh, but wait a minute. I forgot. How do I log? Where's the IP address that I need to go to? Well, we can just do Terraform show, and that's going to recall all our information of our server. If you scroll up, you'll see our billing cycle, your IP address, the public IP address, and so on. But the part that I'm really interested in is really how to log in, and it's right here. Okay. So I'll take this, and I'll go here, and I'll paste that, and here we are. So this is 11/254. This is my server on packet. So let's log in. Etholium admin. Get my password from right here. And log in. And here we are. So now you have your server running bare metal on packet. Here is our memory, our disk, and also our CPUs that we currently have on our server. Okay, great. But what about VM Maestro? How do I get that thing connected up there? So what I like to do is from VM Maestro, go down here to our web services. And what I'm going to do, instead of using my local instance, I'm going to create a new profile. And I'm going to call it packet. And change the IP address. Do not change the port. Just change the IP. 172.16.11.254, and I lost my colon. Okay. All right. Blah, blah, blah. Unverified, still waiting. Up. Failed to authenticate. Oh, I need to change my user. Guest. And let's go get that password again. And here's our guest password. Paste that in there. Okay. Now we're good to go. So we'll apply that. Say OK. And here's the simulation right here. Let's go ahead and, let's spin this guy up, see what happens. And that's it. Now we're pretty much up and running. So let's refresh this. There we go. So we'll let that go through. Now it's going to spin up as expected. So we'll go back. I currently have I just started a new post or a new thread for T-Shoot. I'm going to try to start creating more of these type of threads where the beginning of the title of the thread is just T-Shoot for different things, for VM Maestro, for Packet, and so forth. So all right. So, sorry, give me one moment. So we can actually go around OpenVPN instead if you don't want to use the OpenVPN part, and we can change that from the VIRL INI file and change it to false instead of instead of true. And do we have any questions so far, Valerie, that have come up?
Oh, hi. Yeah, I think one question I see here, but also new users will want to ask is, what are the differences between deploying it through your local server versus through the box cutter method, and then what are the pros and cons, I guess, to both, if you were to recommend one?
Yeah, the box cutter method is nice because you don't have to worry about actually deploying your VIRL server to begin with. There are a couple extra steps where you have to that you have to take as far as getting all the configuration files through Git, but that method does not require you to have a VIRL server running or available for us to actually get the configs from. If you already have a VIRL server and you're looking to get more hardware available to you so you can run a larger simulation or bigger nodes, then doing it this way is it doesn't require anything extra. It's just a matter, if it's just a VM, you just spin it up and run the commands from the VM itself. I do find, in my opinion, if you already have VIRL server running, that is the easiest method. But if you're brand new to VIRL in general, then doing the box cutter method would be overall easier and shorter. And just to be clear, it's not that so much that we require you to have the VIRL server running for you to actually be able to deploy Packet. Is that we use the configuration or we use your authentication keys from your already deployed VIRL server to actually authenticate your instance in Packet. But we're not sending like a ton of data. So if you have like a terrible internet connection, we're sending a whole bunch of data from your VIRL server out to the cloud. No, we're not.
Okay, yeah, and then I think Ed actually chimed in on the answer here, saying that there's no speed difference between the options. So if that's something you're worried about.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. Yeah, so the overall deployment time is still in the 30-minute mark or so, but we're working on making that less. And that's pretty much all I had at the moment, unless there's we had other questions.
Yeah, if you already are trying this option out or you have any questions from what you see right now, just put it in the Q&A box. And as Alejandro mentioned earlier, we'll keep expanding the documentation on our community, as well as other improvements to bring the deployment time down, etc. And if you need any support, so on the VIRL side, you can contact help@packet.net for any questions, and then they also have a live online chat session, I believe, on their website. And for VIRL, you can always reach through us on the community forum and start your own thread for the questions. All right. Ed, do you want to say anything?
I think I've made I mean, just reminding, the box cutter is really, if you don't even have Fusion or Workstation on your machine, if you want to just put VirtualBox, on there, you can use the box cutter with VirtualBox. That's the other reason, I created it. And it's just another way to, bootstrap to try and, reduce the number of files people are having to edit. That really was kind of the goal in doing the phase 1 launch until we can get, direct UWM support, and then I think a lot of people will probably just, convert to that if they actually have a VIRL server over actually doing the applies and stuff by hand. But it's one of those, we were comfortable with where we were with just having the commands be run by hand, that we thought we'd, release and get some exposure and see how many people were using it and how much they liked it, et cetera, and then kind of enhanced and go on to, UWM from there. I'm trying to think just reading over the other questions. I don't think there are any others that are really standing out that we haven't answered. So not really. It'll be the same, roughly the same thing that we won't have as a webinar, I don't think, depending on how next month goes. But this is all obviously showing, a single server. We will be doing, cluster launches that'll probably be, more formally released in, early mid-March. So if your topologies are getting really large to even fit on a 128, the type 3 server, just having that option that you can have multiple servers on packet. We'll also be doing regular cluster support for folks if they have their own hardware, but for those that don't, we'll be enabling even larger launches for people to do. I think that's about it.
All right, thanks, Ed, Alejandro, and also Adam again, and thank you guys all for joining us today. We'll have the recording and Q&A, everything posted and emailed to you after this. Like I mentioned earlier, if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Yes, Valerie, likewise. Can you leave Q&A open for a few minutes?
Yeah, sure thing.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say that everyone is welcome to reach out to me personally or our help at address, and we are happy to help with any questions as well. And any questions right now, happy to do some Q&A.
All right, so we'll go off audio, but we'll keep the Q&A session running. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody.